going down, mi raza? You've just tuned in to the first episode of Raza Stand podcast with me, half of the host, Brown, and el camarada.
What up, peeps? This is S and Flow. You're the co-host. We talked about doing this for a long time, and it's finally here. We're happy to do this. Happy to bring some information to anybody who's going to listen to this. Hopefully we get enough people to start listening. If not, it's just going to be the two of us talking, right? But
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is this going to be something that we're going to keep doing and really put our energy into it? So just going off of that, man, like what brings you to do this? What made you want to do something like this in the first place?
Yeah, man. So the introduction to this podcast is up. We've been trying to post little clips here and there, snippets of what's to come, what's to be expected from Raza Stand podcast, and we really are going to step into territory where a lot of people don't want to be in, as Chicanos or just Mexicanos, overall just Latinos from Latin America. So there's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of everything that you would expect between a culture, a race, and we're gonna discuss that and try to break down some barriers, try to find some hidden things that a lot of people don't. We're gonna discuss a lot of things that a lot of people don't even notice within our people, and we're gonna bring it to you with facts and everything. So if you want to challenge whatever we got to bring to the table, go right ahead. We actually welcome for you guys to leave comments. This will be uploaded to YouTube, to all audio streaming sites. So we welcome for you guys to be a part of this conversation because we want to hear your side of the story. We want to hear what you think about what we're talking about, because we don't want people to just come out thinking, oh, these guys are just full of shit. They just want to be out there just talking nonsense. But like a lot of what we're gonna say is just are even thoughts on a lot of people's minds that they just don't want to even say it because they don't want to get into problems. They don't want to get into a beef with someone that may be living that lifestyle, may be living that way. And eventually we're gonna do about, how many do you think, 10 episodes for season one?
Something like that, about 12, 13.
Okay.
Hopefully, we get to that. But again, man, yeah. I'm going to second that. I don't know if you're done, what you were going to say.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just basically end it with, we're going to eventually bring some people on the line as, interviewing them, or just to bring on to just discuss other topics and their point of view in season 2 or somewhere down the line, so that's pretty much, yeah, man.
Yeah. So for me, what really, attracted me to do it. I've been wanting a podcast for a long time. I just didn't know where to do it, how to do it, who to connect with. But when I saw your podcast, you actually have a couple of them, but the one that I got to be a part of was My Hand Thinking Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm correct, that's what it's called, right?
Yes, My Hand Thinking Right.
And I was a host, and it just the way we conversed, man, it was very natural.
Yeah.
Listen, I met this guy. I've never even met him in real life. I mean, we met virtually, but you wouldn't know, right? I mean, we connect pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Northern Cali. I'm from Southern Cali.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, he was a person that I felt that I can really, do this with because, he's really passionate about talking about these issues.
Yeah.
And, he can also bring some information that I don't have. As a matter of fact, right before we got on, he was talking about some stuff that I never heard about. So we're going to get into that in a minute. But, for me, it's just, bringing, like you said, information to the people that consider themselves, part of the brown Spanish-speaking community. However you identify today, we're going to go over all these, not all of them, but, a big part of the terms that people used to identify themselves with, just to really go into, why do people use these terms in the first place. That's going to be our episode today. But overall, I'm going to bring information. We're both going to bring information that is going to challenge, the status quo, or even ways of thinking that we've been, taught to think, because as a Chicano, as a Latino, as a Mexican, sometimes we might be taught to think a certain way. And if we step out of that, thought process or state of mind, sometimes, we're considered to be, well, what are you doing? Like that's not what we do as a raza, you know what I mean? Like we're supposed to act that way. So we're gonna break all of that, man. We're gonna be really just diving into stuff that is gonna, challenge people, and it might make them a little bit uncomfortable. But you know what? I've done a bunch of research, and my pedigree, my what do you call that? Where I'm coming from, is from a historical background. So I feel like that I bring some credibility to the table. Also, coming from a neighborhood that was pretty economically deprived, just my upbringing was pretty rough. So I also bring that experience, so I bring the streets, the academics, the hip hop element to it too, that I'm really looking forward to getting into it, man. So yeah, man. So
yeah, man.
So just to dive right back in, just to dive right into it, one of our first identities that, I would say is kind of recent in the sense that the way people identify, but it's also kind of ironic because, I mean, it's probably one of the first ones we should be identifying with, right? And that is the identity of Indigenous or Native American, right? So what are your thoughts on that, Brown? I mean, how do you feel about people identifying that way?
Yeah. So I mean, with this whole topic that we're gonna go over, a state of identity, we're gonna focus on all these, man. It's gonna be a cool thing because a lot of people are taking it back to their indigenous roots. And what I mean by that is I'm noticing a lot of people are, joining danzas, like the danza groups, and dressing the part and doing all that, eating certain foods that the indigenous used to eat, and try to stick to that type of diet, things, that type of living that way. But now the question is that I ask myself a lot is like, is there a right or wrong way to live your life as a Chicano or as whatever you identify with? As indigenous, they were deprived of a lot of things. So if you want to live like an indigenous person, are you gonna choose to deprive yourself of a lot of things? If you're gonna go for it, I mean, I always think if you're gonna go for something, go for it completely, right? Yeah. and I always ask myself, like a lot of people are, want to dress the part. They want to, try to speak the part. They want to try to basically just live like they used to live back in the days, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, like a lot of things got ruined because they wanted to make it into a more modern, way of living, putting buildings and just things that they added throughout the years that compared to how it used to be. So that made life into a faster way of living. Things got faster. The way of life was in a way tainted. You know what I mean? So I understand when people want to go back to the roots, but is that even possible to live in this society and try to go back to your roots and live the way they used to live in this society? Or would you have to go live somewhere out there in the fucking jungles to do that?
Man, that's a lot of questions that, I'm going to try to answer myself. So for me, identifying as Indigenous, I do identify as Indigenous, but not just Indigenous. Reason why I say that is because, one, like you said, I think to identify with that, specific term, there's a lot of things that go into it, right? I mean, there's no deny it. I'm brown as fuck, so obviously I got some, some native blood in me. I mean, and as a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I took a DNA test through 23andMe, and ironically, bro, the majority of my DNA was actually European. So to me that was a shocker because I was like, man, like what the fuck? Like I don't even. I mean, look at me. I got the Juan Diego mustache. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, most of that comes from my mama's side, and because my dad is a little lighter. Their parent, his parents and his family are like more European looking. So that's probably why too. But also, for me, that term, it's not just the way you look, but also like you said, the culture. Like I speak very little Nahuatl, but I mean, like that's because I've learned it on my own. Like
Mm.
Oh, but I cannot have a conversation with the native, go to Mexico City and start speaking to them now. Well, I might understand some words and all, but like, it's really hard for me to just identify with that, because it's a lifestyle, it's a way of life, like you said. uh who is really willing to do all that, like just doing this now? I mean, like,
Mm.
this is not indigenous. I mean, like the whole podcasting thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we had, storytellers or whatever, but
Storytellers was back in the day, yeah. That
right.
was a form of entertainment.
Yeah. But obviously, things have changed in the last 500 years, but there is a group out here in LA known as the Mexica movement.
Mm.
And they're a pretty controversial group because they pretty much want to do what you're talking about. If it's not Native American, if it's not, they call themselves Nicantlaca, which means, we the people in Nahuatl, you know, and essentially what they're trying to do is recreate a whole new indigenous identity for people who are mixed bloods, people who are fully native, right? They don't even accept the term mixed blood. As a matter of fact, it's an insult to call somebody a mixed blood. But
Mm.
the fact is that we are mixed blood, bro. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a given. You know what I mean? Like, there's no denying that. But uh yeah, man, like, and like you were talking about, they want you to give up sports, they want you to give up anything that has to do with European culture, they want you to give it up. And if to me, if that's what it means to be Native American, or that's what it means to be indigenous, you know, I'm not fucking with that, because like there's so many things that I do that are not indigenous. You know what I mean? Like this, and that's why it's hard for me to really own that term, just indigenous, because I'm more than that. And we'll get into more of that later on. But um, yeah, man. I mean, and of course, if you want to identify with that, like I'm not gonna fight you over that. But I think to me, it's also like, and we talked about this earlier. Like here in the States, if you say that here in the States, hey, I'm Native American, like, okay, well, what's, how much, like, what's your blood quantum? You know what I mean? Like, are you 25%? Are you 50%? That's a big deal here. And if you don't know
Mm.
that here, you have no rights to claim
Mm.
anything. And how many people, in Mexico actually, that are not, fully indigenous or whatever, actually know how much they are, how much rights do they have to land, you know? So it's totally different, man. Like on this side of the border,
Mm.
to say that. Uh, so yeah, man, that's my thoughts on
That's
that.
interesting, bro. That's interesting how you broke that down. And I appreciate, bro, that like, you know, people like yourself, man, historians and people that are going into this, not only because I'm sure it interests you, you know what I mean? It's an interesting subject for you to take in, but it's just you're putting it to work. Like you're literally putting that knowledge to work right now. And you're like breaking it down to the level where people can understand. Because I mean, you're blending in street knowledge with book knowledge and historical facts, and it's just a beautiful thing, man. That we're able to do this, and we're able to put this out and break it down like you broke down right now. That some people look into the percentages of how much percentage you are. Like some people fight over, oh, you have so much money, wealth, wealth, socioeconomics, things like that. But some people fight over percentages of their blood lineage. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Like that's where people get passionate about their beginnings. Like people get so passionate about material things, about what I mean, where they live up in the hills. Okay, you must be wealthy. Oh, you got 30% fucking Native American in your blood? Damn. I want to be like you,
That's
So
on
it's
this
like,
border. Like I said, on that side of the border, most people don't want to identify with that. They're like, nah, I ain't no
mm,
Indio. Like, they could be darker than me, bro, and they're just not gonna identify with that. So
mm-hmm.
I think
Now,
that's
would this be a good spot, bro?
yeah.
Oh, my bad, bro. What were you saying?
All right, now go ahead. I'm done.
Oh, would this be a good spot to bring up? Because when you mentioned that a lot of these type of yes, tribes and traditions, they want you to give up basically your European life,
Basically,
the European way of living.
yeah.
And that sounded a lot like what I was telling you about with Jose Vasconcelos, that him, like Hitler, was trying to basically uh I mean, because Hitler and his followings and the whole Nazi movement they were stopping a lot of the things that were going on in Europe that coincided with black culture. Like jazz was prohibited in
Yeah.
many places because of that. And that sounds a lot alike, that they're trying to prohibit something because it resounds with another culture that they basically are against. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So if I'm correct, the next term is raza, right?
yeah, raza.
So it's a perfect segue to that. So
Okay.
the raza term, and this is our, obviously our name of our podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get into why we decided to name it, at least for me, that the term really first, gained popularity, with the author you were talking about, right? And again, we'll give you all the links and everything, once
Mm-hmm.
it was over, you guys can look it up. Uh, and the term, it was raza cosmica, and essentially the idea behind this was that you know Mexico had just come out of the revolution. They were uh, a lot of the stuff that happened in the revolution really should have happened uh, during the independence movement, but it just basically got pushed to the side, kind of like, I guess, kind of like here in the U.S. In the American Revolution, right? You had
Mm-hmm.
Declaration of Independence, right? You had all these freedoms, but you still had slavery.
Okay.
That should have been addressed there and then. It wasn't, so it got pushed to another war, right? So essentially, what ended up happening, right? Once the revolution was over, you know, uh, this term raza cosmica, came out of that. Essentially, uh, what the author was saying was, um, Mexico is unique in the sense that, really all Latin America, if you want to bring that up, but I think he was being more specific to Mexico, is unique because we have a blend of everything, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
Europeans, we have natives, right? Uh, and and the Bronze race, right? We were basically a brand new people, right? And we should be proud of that, right? So this is for the first time that, I guess, even the early signs of brown pride, or if you want to call it that too, came about from here. But like you were talking about, right? The connection with Hitler, there was more people here than natives and Europeans. There was black people here too in Mexico, right?
Mm-hmm.
There still is, but that's a hidden history too that we're gonna get into later on, But it was Asians, right? There was other people that were kind of sucked up by this mestizaje, right? Uh, that he was talking about. But really, what this ended up doing is, yes, you have this superior culture, whatever he wants to call it, but all these other cultures, they get kind of pushed to the side, and this idea of being superior, like you said, I think there's a connection with Hitler with that, because he had that same idea, in Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably like you were talking about. He had that in common with him, that he felt, okay, well, we're superior, in that sense, and there was a big push also to bring more Europeans here to Mexico, or to Latin America, to widen,
Mm-hmm.
the country, and that goes back, years, and again, we'll get more into that once we get to that topic, but I just want to bring.
Man, another thing that I was reading up on, the fact that why I mentioned that there was a connection between Jose Vasconcelos and like the Nazi movement was that he actually was a co-writer or co-creator of a publication called Timon. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but Timon, Timon, that was issued back then, where they would write a lot of what was going on in the time, and a lot of the writing in there was pro-Nazi.
Hmm.
So that's another connection that a lot of scholars that I was seeing, because I subscribe to a lot of universities through YouTube and just a lot of different places. I check it out, and like different scholarly like articles and stuff, and they talk about that, the fact that there's a connection there, and how they wanted to widen Mexico and widen, basically that, bringing that culture in.
Which is kind of ironic, like I said, because he's
Mm-hmm.
talking about, the raza cosmica, right? The blending of all these cultures. But then I didn't know that until you told me. I mean, I'm gonna have to read up on that.
And I will provide you
yeah,
the links where I got that from. Yeah.
So that's what we're gonna do. Like everything we say, we're not just saying it out of our ass. Like we're actually backing it up with information. Like some of this stuff obviously is our own opinions, but a lot of the stuff we're gonna present to you guys is gonna have sources, so you guys can fight the sources, don't fight us. You know what I mean? Like with you guys, But at the end of the day, like we're just presenting the information. But yeah, man, like that's really interesting to have that perspective, to be like, yeah, we're the bronze race, but at the same time, let's bring in more whites to make them whiter, But
I mean, and to this day, racism within Mexicanos in Mexico exists, like is there, especially with the more indigenous Indio people. They the people living in the city, they're like, oh, hasta para allá, Indio, like literally, like get away from here, Indio, like you don't belong in the city, you belong in the somewhere up in the freaking, And I've seen videos, like there's actually like on YouTube, there's a lot of videos on that. People post things like that, and just like what was that?
Go ahead, finish it.
Oh, like just like they have here, where like the recent videos of black people doing things to like paleteros, things like that. It's the same kind of equivalence, but in Mexico, that's crazy. I mean, that's ironic as fuck. And you know how that happens, and they think that it's just here in the States.
Yeah, it happens there too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Mexico has a racist past too. The reason why it's not as prevalent as here is because of all the intermarriage between different cultures. It really happened here, so people were able to have identities, right? So, and I don't want to get too much into this because there is a whole section on the caste system, the cover that talks about why that even happened. But to say that Mexico doesn't have any racism is a lie. I mean, it's a big reason why. I mean, you even see it in your own families. I mean, like está prieto, or like, oh, está muy güerito, like you want your kids to not you, but I mean, like, in general, people want to marry up, if you want to call it that, or widen up, so.
Oh, you know what? Another thing about Jose Vasconcelos, that he would preach a lot about the fact that we should marry white. We should marry white, like, keep it white within relationships and things like that. And that's another thing. Once we get to it, that's something that I want to talk about. And I had this conversation with other of my friends, and the whole thing where sometimes it is kind of better to keep it within your own, like, kind of, I guess race and things like that, because it's just, a lot of factors come in, you know what I mean? This religion, it's especially religion, that's a big one within, especially if you marry someone like, like as a Buddhist and stuff like that, you coming from, Catholic background and stuff like that. I mean, once we get to it, that's something to discuss.
Yeah. So what's next on the list, man? What are we going to discuss next?
Yeah, man. That's another thing that I had mentioned for you to add it, man. To add it to something that we could talk about. The whole vaquero, the Mexicano vaquero, and how we as Mexican American associate and put our how we associate to this vaquero movement, or I don't know what you want to call it, man. Just being vaquero and dressing the part and things like that. And I, like me coming from the family that I come from, is like predominantly just vaqueros, you know what I mean? People that dress just the part. And like you can see, like I'm just a Chicano from the block, like, like it ain't none of that with me. And they've always looked at me funny. My family always, like, oh, ahí va ese cholo, ahí va ese cholo. And it's like I may dress the way I do, but like I like to surprise people and basically talking to them that I know more than what I perceive to know more. You know what I mean? Just because I dress a certain way, just because I talk a certain way, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you basically have a picture of me and that's it. It's just stereotypical, and that's the same thing with the vaquero. You know what I mean? That a lot of them don't even have any cattle. A lot of them are not even vaqueros, genuine vaqueros and stuff. They just want to dress the part just because whatever reason, they just like the they like the culture or something, whatever. But you know what I mean? A lot of people don't talk about that. It's something that people don't like talking about.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think that's probably more common up north, just because I mean, there's more, you know, farms,
Oh, ranches, you know.
rural up there. You know, I mean, we do have that down here. You know, um, and I had never really heard anybody really use that term. You know, um, like right here, like it's funny because like we you know, you like there's so many, you know, different types of music that there's like the chalinos, you know, the people that listen to,
Mm-hmm.
corridos, you know, like they pop their collars, you know what I mean? Like that's a whole different thing too.
The
But
whole narco movement.
yeah, yeah, right. And then there's people who listen to tamborazo or like banda, you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
or speak mainly Spanish. And they might even be born here too. Like they might be like kind of like you were talking about, you know, but most of the family, you know, speaks or, you know, mainly Spanish or
Mm-hmm.
dress a certain way. So you become kind of the outcast if you don't do that. Like a lot of my my partners, you know, her cousins, you know, like they married guys, you know, from up north or like who work in the farms, you know, but they were born here, you know, and when you speak to them, you know, like they respond to you mainly in Spanish. And for me, it's always kind of awkward because like I'll tell them something in English because I know they know English. I mean, like they're from here, right? They reply to me in Spanish, and so then I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you in Spanish, I guess, you know, like out of respect, but then like they'll mix it up with Spanglish and so it's definitely cultural too. I mean, like, and it's funny to say that because you know, like, you know, we're both Mexican, obviously, you know, like,
Yeah.
but it's really, you know, like the culture. But sometimes, you know, like you were talking about, well, are you really Mexican if you don't dress that way, or if you don't embrace that culture, or if you don't embrace that lifestyle, like putting big old championship belts, you know. But that's what I used to call my cousin because he used to dress like that, you know, like, hey, what's up with your, you know, big old championship belt, you know, that you're rocking there, you know, like, because he used to go to, you know, to clubs and, you know, and that's that. And I remember he took me a couple of times to some of those things, and I'm like, man, I felt so out of place. I was like, this is not my thing, you know. And and I remember a while back, this is a long time ago, it was like 10 years ago. I was dating this girl who was pretty much all about that stuff, you know, and there was a lot of that stuff too. It's like, yeah, are you really Mexican? Like, I mean, like, you don't even speak Spanish that much, like, and it's kind of frustrating because, you know, I think I am. I mean, I don't feel like I'm not Mexican, but then again, like we talked about this earlier, you know, like just in private conversations, you know, like, you know, you're not Mexican once you go to Mexico. You know what I mean? Like they'll let you know, you know, right away, like, hey, like you're not, you know, they'll call you a pocho or whatever, you know, like they'll even call you güero, bro. There was this one paletero that used to come around my neighborhood all the time. He was from Oaxaca, and he would call us güeros, and I was like, from where? Like, what the, you know what I mean? Like, but it was because we were from here, like, you know, and um, but I think at the end of the day, like, you know, it's culture, bro. Like people will identify with what they feel most connected to, and I think for the most part,
Yeah.
even if people didn't own, you know, like, you know, uh, horses or cattle or whatever, a lot of our people I think come from little small villages, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel like they feel connected to that lifestyle, you know. Like my parents came from a village, you know. My dad used to, you know, herd cattle and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and whatever. He doesn't dress like that, but I mean, he's been here pretty much his whole life now. I mean, he came here when he was
Yeah.
17, so he's pretty much an American if you want to say that, you know. Uh, but yeah, man, I think a lot of it is just like, you know, what you were attracted to, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
It's a trip though, bro. Like you mentioned, like, you know, does that make you more Mexican? Just like you mentioned, bro. A lot of things that I'm the type of dude that I love to observe. Like I may be, you know, hanging out, you know, somewhere, even at a club, and even my homies are like, get the nice way, like what's up? Like why you so quiet? Why you so quiet? I'm like, I like to observe. Like I like to like those places are not my normal, like I don't really go to clubs. I never really liked that stuff. I never really liked certain things. But when I'm at somewhere, I tend to, because I think a lot, bro. So
Yeah,
I tend to just think about, okay, look, there's like these type of people here. There's those type of people there, and look at they don't intermingle. For some reason, they don't like. There's the cholos over here. There's the vaqueros over there. There's the whatever pretty boys, whatever they call them over there, with their fucking or what do they call them? The new terms, the pretty, yeah, fuck boys or tacuaches, tacuaches they call them. Yeah, those type of people are, they're scattered. You know what I mean? So it's like we see these different people that don't intermingle because it's like different worlds in one fucking building. You know what I mean? So it's like I notice these things, bro. How we divide ourselves no matter where we go because it's what we associate with. Like I will go and step into a club and go into with the vaqueros because that's not my people. Even though it is my people, but it's not my people. Get it? You know what I mean? It's not my culture. It's not my type of culture. Like I come from the whole Chicano, Chicano rap, type of shit. Like, ¿qué onda, homie? ¿Cómo estás? Eh? That type of shit. Like, no, I don't fucking like, and a lot of people can relate to this. You know what I mean? Because I've had conversations with dudes that be like my family don't fucking like me because the way I dress, man. Like fucking, they always look at me, my tios and tias, like they always fucking like look at me all like look down on me and shit because of the way I dress. And I'm like, fuck, bro, like that's exactly what I feel too when I go to fucking parties or quinceañeras with family stuff. They fucking look at you weird, bro. Like it's like fuck, bro. Like let me live and shit. Let me live my life, eh?
For real,
you
man.
know? No, but for real though, like on the serious note, like these talks don't get aren't had, bro. Nah. They aren't had, and especially when I'm in my head a lot, bro, and I think about these things and the whole what makes you more genuine.
More Mexican.
There is no fucking right answer because you know what I mean? Like what makes you more genuine is what you believe in. You know what I mean? And if you believe that being vaquero is or dressing the part as vaquero is more genuine to the Mexican root, which the Mexican root is not even what you even think. Mexican root, the whole Spanish language and all that, that's not even what you actually think. Like that comes from there's a whole fucking division within that fucking language anyway. There's Castellano, there's all kinds of fucking different like where we be talking is Castellano, right?
Yeah, it's funny because that's a good point. I mean, the whole language thing because really, I mean, it's not even it's like if you go to Spain, like they'll clown you too because it's not really Castellano because there's a lot of Nahuatl, influence in a lot of our words. I mean, anything that ends with a te in Spanish pretty much comes from Nahuatl. Like
that's true.
Aguacate comes from aguacat. Chocolate comes from chocolate. Sorry. Coyote comes from coyote. So you basically just replace the e with an l, and so Nahuatl has the indigenous language had a big influence on Spanish here in Mexico, and that's why. And I don't know if you noticed this, but in Mexico, the dialects, like they're very different in different parts of Mexico. Really, like it's almost like little countries within Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And out of all the countries, we sound the most different. All the other countries, to me at least, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, like Central Americans, they kind of have the same, dialect. Like Venezuelans, Colombians, South Americans, they kind of have. They sound similar, more similar to Spain than we do.
Mm-hmm.
And even the way we enunciate words in Spanish, and if you go to these little pueblos, you can tell the native influence, right? For example, I'll give you a word, right? I don't know if you ever heard this. When you go to you say your family's from Michoacan, right? Is that correct?
No, Jalisco.
Jalisco, my bad. I thought I heard Michoacan, but my family's from Michoacan, right? Mm-hmm. Small little village. So when we go there, when people say leche, they say leche.
Leche. Yeah, that's the. Right. What do you call that? That's like the pueblo.
That's indigenous influence, bro.
This is okay.
Because they don't. It's like us when we speak English. We have a dialect, like we don't sound quote unquote. We don't speak Britannic English. We don't speak East Coast English. We speak West Coast English, and you have a Chicano influence. You know what I mean? Like so that dialect comes from the native people, and the reason why is because Mexico had a huge native population that was not like it's still there, as opposed to if you go to El Salvador, like the majority of the people are dead. Their communities, they no longer exist. Like you have small communities, but I think like 90% of like their population indigenous population is gone, bro. Like,
Yeah.
so the the way that you absorb Spanish was completely different than the way we
Mm.
absorbed it, you know. So,
Yeah. You know, one thing I'm gonna bring up, bro, that really stuck to my mind, bro, when my dad would mention to me, like, just when in different things that would happen like throughout my life,
uh,
I would get into some shit, you know what I mean? Into some trouble, whatever. And he would sometimes say, we should have just stayed in Mexico.
fuck.
Like, and I, at the moment, I thought, like, fuck, like, is he just unhappy with me or so? What the fuck? But down somewhere down the line, I started thinking, like, I started putting myself in his shoes and thinking like what he went through, all the struggles he went through, just to end up with the son that is getting influenced by
Gang culture.
thugsters, by yeah, gang culture. And I mean, gang culture in itself has its positives because of unity in itself that brought about that. But I mean, besides the point, like, there's more negative, of course, you know what I mean? And he noticed those things. And I sometimes think like this way of living over here compared to over there, it seems more corrupted. It seems to corrupt faster than out there. And
And
I
I,
don't know if I don't
but
know if you seen like if you ever seen something in print where they discuss this, like scholarly. I've been searching for something like this, like the what's it called, just the difference in lifestyle, in how when intermingled with lifestyle over here, it just corrupts things. And how just everything seems to make, just because the lifestyle over here is so fast and is more geared towards getting money. And
yeah,
no matter what way you get money, that's like the model for the states, you know what I mean? Get that money, get that power, no matter what way you get it, just get it. That's what movies seem to tell you. That's what social media seems to fucking be pushing out there. And like, especially youngsters, they get this. They get this in their minds, that they understand, like, by any means necessary. Like, I gotta get it. And like, sometimes I think, like, damn, maybe that's true. Maybe they should have stayed in Mexico. But by this point now,
it's too late.
Mexico's corrupt as fuck.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So shit. I mean, like,
it's almost like, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, like, if you would,
yeah, double-edged sword. There we go. Yep. Yep.
you make up bring up a good point, and I think that's a big reason why maybe, in your situation where you feel like, or maybe for a lot of people too, where, you know, vaqueros, or, genuine Mexicans, whatever, whatever you want to call them. I mean, like, they look down upon, and this is going to segue to our next topic, the Chicano,
Mm-hmm.
or the Cholo, or whatever, because they, when you identify with that, right, or even just a little more American or whatever, it's like you're kind of betraying, the humble beginnings, or
Mm.
like, you're they don't want you to associate with that, because if you associate with that, most of the time it's going to be negative, right? When you associate with that
Mm.
kind of culture. So if you stay within vaquero culture, people are more humble, right? I mean, at least you would like to think so. Uh, you know what I mean? There's
That's something. That's a key point right there, bro. Because I
a lot of
remember,
rappers too. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of
yeah,
people
I
drink.
remember like my cousins would be all passed out, drunk and shit, and they were like the vaquero type. And then my mom would be like, ¿Por qué no puedes ser como ellos? Son muy, son muy humildes. I'm all like, son muy, estás mirando que están todos tirados en el suelo? Are you seeing them just drunk on the floor there? Like, you want me to be like them?
Yeah,
That would crack me up how I would tell her that. And then, I mean, but they don't understand this new vaquero culture. They understand the vaquero way out
yeah,
there,
yeah.
but not here. Here's a different fucking thing.
But even back there, though, I mean, like you said, now it's totally different. I mean,
Yeah, not now. It's yeah.
I see my cousins, when I go back to Mexico, like, I see them, and that's very common. And whenever, like, my mom and, just older people, like, especially women, like, see these videos, or like, because they always have fiestas, and you see women drinking, they almost pass out, bro, because like the women be drinking, like, because like back in the day that wasn't even acceptable. I mean, like,
Yeah.
bro, like, you would not see that. So I think culturally, I mean, it's changed a lot. And it's ironic because when you go over there, and I don't know if you've seen this, or how often you go, there's the you know, cholo culture is there too. You have vatos
Mm-hmm.
dressed up, you know, as
Mm-hmm.
hardcore thugs, but like you know, like when you talk to them, you know, like they're obviously from the pueblo, you know what I mean? They sound like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but they respect the culture too, so it's ironic, you know, and that's a good
Mm.
segue into the next one, which is, if I'm correct, is the Pachuco,
Chicanismo.
you know, Zuzu culture, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So how we titled this is it's Chicanismo on life support.
That's right.
That's a good question. Is it on life support? Like Chicanismo. Let's define Chicanismo. What is Chicanismo?
So the way I would break it down, you know, it would be in three ways, right? So I think the term really originated, you know, in the early 1900s with Mexicans that were born here, right, in the United States, and going back to what you were talking about, the whole vaquero thing, right? I think that was very common. It's been an issue for us, you know, like for the longest, you know, for sons and daughters of immigrants who cannot identify with the culture from their parents because they're not from there, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they still obviously have elements of it, but they're born here, they're raised here, they you know, speak mainly English for the most part, especially back then. I mean, back then you could not speak any Spanish because you got your ass.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So um, the word really started there, right? And then the Pachucos and the Zoot you know, they really popularized the word and a lot of terminology, you know, that we still use today. You know, like
Yeah.
comes from them. You know, they use words like you said. You know, that had indigenous, you know, origins, or even like archaic, like Spanish origins. Like the word vato is like from old Spain. I mean, like it just means guy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like so like they that, and then you have the student movement, you know, in the 60s, because before that Chicanos was almost like, it was kind of degrading to use that word. It was like, why are you calling yourself a Chicano? That's it was almost like bocho, or like just like a negative, it had a negative
Mm-hmm.
connotation, you know. It wasn't until the students, you know, that you know, that generation that started going to colleges, you know, that really took that word and owned it and empowered it. You know, so people started calling themselves Chicanos and Chicanas, you know, like, and proudly, you know. And I think once it got to that, to the academics, then you know, it just blew up and it became a little more popular. But um, I think now, whenever you hear the term Chicano, from my understanding, whenever I hear somebody say it, a lot of the times it is tied now to, like, you know, cholo culture or gang culture, because that's why I say, is it online support? Because I mean, I don't really see youth using it anymore, you know, and if they do,
Mm-hmm.
it's something else. And we're gonna get into that later, but you know, like, um, yeah, those are my thoughts on that. I mean, like, what?
That Latinx movement is killing Chicanismo. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just because I've been watching a lot of videos on the new generation talking about uh is it proper to even use, to even say la raza or Chicanismo or any of those terms. And it's kind of a slap in the face for a lot of people that put in their time, their work, their effort into all these changes that they made throughout the years, and I mean, the brown berets are still active, not as active as they could be, but they're there,
Yeah.
and they're embracing all those terminologies. And so it's like it's a slap in the face for everyone that wants progress for like the movement. And I understand why a lot of people don't want to associate with, because I mean it's just a different this race consists of, I mean, there's even like the movie, like the standout, the blowout. Have you seen that movie, the
Lockout.
Knockout? There we go.
Uh,
Yeah.
Edward
Even
James
that
Cole
movie,
directed.
the girl that was the actual girl that actually was the movie was based on, she's half Filipina, half
Yeah,
Mexican. So
yeah,
even in the movie, that her dad is
yeah.
like, what are you,
A chili.
Chicana? You're a Chilipina. You know
That's
what I mean? So that always stuck in my head. You know what I mean? So like that by itself is why people shy away from associating themselves with the term Chicano or Chicana, because they may be like, there's some Afro Latinos, Where do they fit in the picture? You know what I mean? So
That's
it's like it's inclusion, exclusion, and division. You know what I mean? All tied into one thing that we're trying to put into a box as Chicano. And I understand that, you know what I mean? But regardless, that I still associate myself as a Chicano because I understand based on my roots, based on where I grew up, based on all that, looking at all that, I don't associate with America. I don't associate with Mexico. I associate with what I grew up to be. You know what I mean? So I can't say I'm a Mexican. I can't say, oh, Viva Mexico. I can't say Viva Estados Unidos. I say Viva siendo Chicano. You know what I mean? Like I am who I am. You know what I mean?
you're like the early, you're like the early Pachucos who really, felt like they didn't have a country,
Yeah, pretty much. That's how because like, you know what I mean? I don't know if I should mention this right now, which is, I mean, yeah, we're in the Chicanismo in, the whole Cholo movement and things like
Yeah,
that with the Pachuco.
yeah,
So with the Cholo movement, like when I got into all that, you know what I mean? What really captivated me and kind of kept me in that wanting to be a part of that was basically the camaraderie.
yeah.
You know what I mean? The
Analismo.
oh homie, like I see you because when I was young, I would be in the streets a lot because my folks would be working long hours. I would be with like a babysitter and she will be just in the house while I'm like out, you know what I mean? And you know what I mean? I would go with my friends and things like that. And and after a while it just seemed like I was more out than indoors. And it just seemed like the people that I hung out with in the streets was more family than my family. I never really hung out with my sister or my brother.
Mhm.
So these kids in the streets were more family than family, my own family. So it's like I associated that with the bonding with if there was problems in the neighborhood, oh, let's form together. Let's go against this problem together. That was what I loved. But little by little, it changed into a violent thing. Little by little, it's like, oh, fools over there
Yeah,
has this. Let's go take it from them. The fools over there, that things like that.
yeah,
It became a give me. Like you don't give it to me, or whatever. But like, but then what really brought me back to the love of the Chicanismo was that in high school, uh, there was skinheads. There was not like skinheads, Nazis in high school, and they would be like tagging that shit up on the walls, that the swastika signs and shit.
yeah,
And that brought me back to the like norteños and sureños were stopped their fucking fighting and all that shit
yeah.
because there was on the walls where there was X3 X4 right near it was swastika signs. And like people were like the youngsters, the students were like, fuck, like what the fuck, you know what I mean? Like this
Yeah.
is like, but how the fuck can we let this, And I remember in my French class, I had French back in high school, and there was this one white kid that would like always be like people like just stereotypical names like Latinos, like hey, how are you, Nacho, and things. And then
Yeah.
in the one, and then in the basically skinheads. So, me and some of the like norteños and sureños were all freaking getting together and try to beat these people up. So that brought me back to like the if there's a bigger problem than what we can handle as a people, somehow, some way, we form that bond together just to combat that issue. It's funny how that works, bro. It's funny how that works. And I think it relates to bigger issues in the world where a nation gets together and puts their differences to the side to combat this issue that's going on that can potentially interfere with their way of living. You know what I mean?
I,
So it's like this kind of uh this kind of made me think about that, like how it can happen so quickly, and it can happen without even being without there even being like rules to this. It's like we immediately know that this is us against them, and we form together. I don't know, bro. It's
I had
just
a
a love thing.
very similar experience, except I didn't go to school with skinheads because my school was predominantly raza. I mean, it was 99%, and when you were talking about earlier how like you know, you could see the same culture of people, but they all have different little subcultures. You know, you have the rockers, you have the cholos, you got the, you know, the people who, you know, the immigrants, you know, like you had different groups, you know, and everybody was the same culture, the same, you know, from the same neighborhood, right? But what brought me to the Chicanismo, you know, like, because that was a term I didn't really use until I was probably like, you know, in my mid-teens, I mean, to be honest, because, you know, I didn't really know what it was. I've heard it, you know, and then like my parents never really called me that. I mean, like, I remember being really, really young, like, and my dad having a conversation with me about something like that. He told me, like, hey, you know, like, don't let anybody tell you that you don't belong in this country, you know, but at the same time, don't forget that you're also a Mexican. I was like 3 or 4 years old when he told me that. But I remember him because, I mean, he was drunk and he was telling me, you know, like, my dad was very loving when he was drunk. You know, he was very like, that's when he really showed me love, you know, like, at least like he verbalized it, right? Um, and then I remember when I was probably, you know, around 15, 16, when I started getting into hip hop myself too, you know, like I was very, very like against using the term Chicano to myself. I was like, I don't want to use that. Like I'm a Mexican. And the reason I would say that was because I would say that you know, we're in colonized land. I mean, this is Mexico. That was my excuse for saying that, you know, like I don't accept the term Chicano because that means I'm accepting the colonization of my people, you know? And like it was funny because my own brother, like, you know, we're 2.5 years apart, but he would use it, you know, more than I would. And he was like, yeah, but at the end of the day, you know, like whether you want to accept it or not, we still live in the US, you know. It took me a while to to come around the word, and then I finally accepted the word, you know, and I took it with pride. And it had to do with what you were talking about. And the people that I saw using it were like, you know, cholos or like, you know, people affiliated in gangs, Chicano rap, all that stuff with me too, you know, it got me to identify with the term and really, you know, like accept it. And had the same, you know, experience, you know, like, okay, well, you know, there's a lot of beef with the neighborhoods. There's a lot of beef with the North and the South, you know, like, why do we do that? You know, why don't we unite as a people? You know, like, and I felt like that term, you know, really, you know, unified, you know, and for the longest, I was against anybody who wasn't Mexican of Mexican descent using the term Chicano. But then when I got to college, you know, and I majored in Chicano studies, you know, I got a different experience with it because somebody asked the question, can anybody be a Chicano? And I was like, no, like, what do you mean anybody can be a Chicano? I mean, you have to be Mexican, you have to embrace, you know, like Mexican identity. But then somebody said, well, yeah, I was like, as long as you know, understand the struggle and the culture, you know, and appreciate it, I think you could be a Chicano. You could be, you know, Asian and be a Chicano. You could be, you know, black and be a Chicano. You could be whatever, you know, like, and I was like, that's really interesting. And I remember a couple of years ago, I met this you know, he's a professor now at one of the universities, but he was a volunteer, and he was black, but you know, for lack of a better term, he sounded like a Chicano, bro. Like he talked like he had the slang of a Chicano, like, you know, you could tell he grew up at homies. I mean, like, you know, like, and that was one of the, and he was really into the culture. He's like, he taught Chicano studies, like, you know, but like the dude was clearly black, like, you know, and that's when I really got to see that. And I was like, damn, like, I've never really seen somebody that's not for my culture embrace our culture like that, you know, or like they sound like if you didn't see the guy and talk to him on the phone, you would have thought he was Raza, bro. Like, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and but yeah, man, like the reason why I think it is on life support is because, like you said, you know, there's new terminology that we're gonna get into in a minute, you know, but also because I think today the term Chicano is associated with gangs and with negativity, unfortunately, you know, and unless like people keep using it, it's honestly gonna die out. You know, we're gonna be we're gonna be viejitos, you know, out there on the street, you know, using, you know, what Chicano, you know what I mean? But I just don't see it lasting, you know, like long, or at least at least like a unifying, you know, like back in the '60s, you know, where you know, like everybody was using it, you know, but.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the new generation too, because they have to find that interest into wanting to keep it alive.
Yep.
Because like I mean, like any other culture, you know what I mean?
Yep.
There's a reason to why want to keep it alive. There's many reasons, you know what I mean? And it's just you have to be interested enough to be a part of that continuation of that culture. You know what I mean? Because to me, I think it gave me a sense of belonging,
Yep.
a sense of pertaining to a certain cause.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it was a lot of it was negative, but like I said
Yep.
before, like you know, it was the sense of like who you really are, like knowing at the end of the day, knowing that the Mexican culture doesn't really fully accept you, the American culture doesn't fully accept you, then where the fuck do you belong? Like if I hadn't found this way of living or this way of this culture, I would have been a lost little puppy. You know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
knowing what to do with like who am I? Like what the fuck? You
And
know?
it really is sad that, you know, that, I mean, the guy culture kind of hijacked that because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think, like you said earlier, you know, like the Zuzuters and the Pachucos, you know, we're just about, you know, the carnalismo and just the
Mm-hmm.
camaraderie, you know, like, and
Yeah.
having different terminology, just hanging out and, you know, and cruising, you know, and dancing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just having a good time. I mean, like, what really messed it up was, to me, what I would say is the introduction of drugs or just, you know,
Yeah.
into the neighborhoods. And basically, that's when it became about territory and just, you know, slanging for, like you were talking about, you know, by any means necessary. I got to go blast
Mm-hmm.
homie, you know, because you know, like, you know, I got to stand for my territory, or he can't be slanging here. You know what I mean? Like, that is when I think it took, you know, if that didn't happen, I think, you know, I think Chicano, you know, the term probably would still have a positive, you know,
Mm-hmm.
unless you go again, unless you go to the universities, it's
Yeah.
really hard to find somebody who, you know, uses it in that way today, you know, like, um, so yeah, man.
I mean,
So
with academia, bro, I
yeah,
didn't mean to cut you off, bro, but like academia in comparison to like the street way of seeing this whole perspective, I feel that universities and things like that, places like that, you know, institutions, they look down upon the whole culture in a way, and I say this in a way that they focus in on the historical background and how it started, and the struggles that they went ahead and went and fought against, which is like the blowouts, and then the whole thing at the school, at the field with Cesar Chavez, all that. They focus and they tie that into the Chicano struggle, the Chicano movement. But when we talk about, they don't like talking too much about the gang part. I noticed that they don't like to talk a lot about that because for once they might not have enough people that can actually corroborate to say this is really happening, or how is it really going down. I mean, they might have someone, but not really someone that was a part of that lifestyle and be like, you know what, well, it probably got corrupted because of this or whatever. So they don't really like to talk about those. I don't know what factor why they don't like to do that, go into those things, but I noticed that because of that, they see that a part of it is kind of tainted. So let's not touch those things. Leave it there. Let's talk about about the Chicano movement, but not that, not that.
you know what?
I
And
mean,
go ahead, you done?
no, yeah, I'm good.
All right, sorry. So I think there's the reason why that is the case is because, like you said, I mean, the gang culture has a lot of negativity. So, you know, in the media, oftentimes or historically, we've been portrayed in a negative way, and we do have
Mm-hmm.
actors. A lot of the times, it's fucking
That, yep.
gangbangers, bro. So
Mm-hmm.
I think they don't want to associate with that because to some extent they want to be accepted by the broader culture. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they want to redefine the term, you know, Chicano, but really Chicano. I mean, there's no clear like who like I was talking about earlier. There's no Chicano identity. I mean, like there's so many ways of being a Chicano, you know. So I think it does do a disservice to ignore that. But I remember when I was in college, when I first started going to college, you know, I had a shaved head, I had my dickies, you know, like my shades, and I remember showing up to class like that, you know, and obviously I stood the fuck out in class, you know, like and I remember the professors really tripping out on me, like, you know, like, and I remember there was this one day where I was, you know, just waiting for class and just kicking back. I had my high socks and my shorts, you know, and and somebody was just like looking at me and they were like, damn, Cholos can make it to college too. Somebody said shit like that, you know? And I was sort of laughing and I was like, damn, like, but for me, like, that was a huge part of my, you know, of my life for a good 5 years. It wasn't until I started working with kids that I really started to look at myself and be like, okay, do I still want to keep, because dude, the kids were asking me, hey, like, so where you from, mister? Like, not like in a way you're like hitting you up, but like they were more concerned with that than what I was trying to teach them.
Yeah,
And
I
I
get
was
you.
like, yo, like, I understand, like you know, and I was only like 19, 22, so I was still pretty young. But I was like, if I'm gonna reach these kids, it's not gonna work that way. Like they have to look a different way, you know. And so I made it intentional to change the way I was dressing, you know, like bought some jeans for the first time in 5 years, you know, like I grew my hair out a little bit, you know, like, but in a way I was like, fuck, am I betraying myself? Like, you know, like, am I betraying the culture? Like, am I selling out, which is what we're gonna get to in a minute, you know, by doing this, you know. And so I struggled with it for a very long time. You know, now not so much. I mean, like, you know, obviously, you know, I don't have a shaved head anymore, you know, but yeah, man, like, I think that's a big reason why, like, they kind of, like, you know, put it to the side or don't want to talk about it or just don't want to incorporate them into Chicano history, you know.
Man, how common is that, bro? Because I feel like you just fucking like described my life right there.
Exactly.
I'm serious, dude. Like, how common is that for a Chicano to go, like, for someone that identifies as Chicano to have those feelings, those thoughts, and they don't talk about it with their homies because it's like, fool, what the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? So they keep it on their head. You know what I mean? Like, damn, am I selling now because I stopped wearing fucking Cortezes? Am I selling now because I stopped wearing fucking Chucks? Am I selling now because I decided to grow my hair just an inch longer? You know what I mean? Like, these questions, bro.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So on the topic of sellouts, right? That's the next topic, right?
Yeah.
So we have two categories, right? We have the category of you know, of the coconut, quote unquote coconut, and the free thinker, right? Oftentimes these two people or these two type of people can be called sellouts by our own community, right? By our own people, right? And you know, you were mentioning the story, you know, that you know, we had a private conversation about you've been called a vendido, right?
Yeah.
So thoughts on that?
We mentioned it. I mentioned it in the intro, in the snippets, that the fact that some señora had called me un vendido porque, like, I approached her in English instead of in Spanish, and she expected me to just, I mean, that's the thing that tripped me out. Like, I didn't know what to expect. I never had, you know, had that type of response from anyone. So, you know, first of all, so, you know, so you already know I was confused as fuck when she, you know, replied with "it is vendido" after me, talking to her initially in English, and that's what we have to live with. You know what I mean? That's what we have to live with as Mexican Americans, uh, not knowing how to even approach someone that looks the part. In a way, we're kind of stereotyping. If you know what I mean? I mean, really, stereotyping is not a bad thing, as people may say. It's just judgment that you have. You have judgment to everything that you like. You know, when you're driving, you have judgment whether you're gonna hit the car next to you or not. You're trying to measure things, so it's just measuring things on the daily. Yeah, basically. So, you know, so we have judgments to everything, you know, and I judge, and I always think to myself, because I think a lot, like I mentioned, I think a lot. So before saying anything, I always first think about, okay, is this gonna offend someone if I say this? Is gonna whatever, you know? So I usually, when I see a señora, un señor, an older, Mexican that I think is like a Latina, I always, say something in English first. That way, you know what I mean? It's just I've always done that, you know. I've always just say, and if they say, ¿qué dijiste, mijo? O lo que sea, and then oh, ¿cómo está, señora? ¿Cómo está, señor? You know what I mean? So basically, but I initiated in English just to be on the safe side. I've always done that. So with this lady that I approached her in English, her calling me a vendido was like totally fucking left field. And it just, you know what I mean? It just threw me off, bro.
Damn. You know what? I don't think I've ever really been directly called a vendido, like someone to my face like that. I think people have hinted at that, and I think so more recently because I mean my thought process has changed in the last 3 4 years. You know, uh, I think for the longest, you know, and this goes back to again to what we were talking about earlier with the whole even the way you dress, how that even feels like you're selling out. Like I'm wearing some jeans now. Like I'm wearing some brand like shirts. You know what I mean? Like for me, I think when I first started getting it or that feeling was probably a little bit after college. And more so now, especially with the state of politics. Which we'll get into next episode. Like how we identify with politics. Or just even like the way we think. It feels like when you identify with a certain term, especially with us, like this whole. I'm pretty sure that when people see this, this whole episode, whatever, or like the whole even just the picture of our podcast and be like, damn, they're gonna be getting down with some real ass topics, like, but we're gonna be saying some shit that people are not gonna like, and they're gonna be like, wait, these are saying raza, they ain't about the raza, they're fucking medidos, you know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get that, and I'm already prepared for it, So in a sense that, and the way I've gotten it, that feeling of people, saying that, I think it's when I start to question certain things, right? So for example, like, you know, especially with our history, right? Learning our history is very painful, bro. Like some of the stuff that happened to us, as Chicanos, as a raza, like the oppression from the white man, like it's there's no denying it. We got it, pretty bad from the get-go, like so to deny that, is not, it's just not logical, like there's so much evidence that it happened. But to me, when I decided to not stay with that hate, because you start to hate them, like when you start learning your history, at least for me, like I don't know if you felt that way, but you start getting a lot of hate. Like I remember being in high school and just hating white people, bro, like just with that passion, like I didn't even know them and I hated them, like I remember just like, and really it got to the point where it wasn't even just whites, it was anybody that it wasn't raza, bro. I was like, nah, we're the superior ones. I had that process. I got to that point where I was basically a brown supremacist, bro. And that's when I started to ask myself, I was like, is this stuff even helping me out? Like, I mean, am I that prideful that I can't even get along with anybody else? Like, obviously there was other issues too, but we're getting to that more, with the other topics. But yeah, like, and then when I decided to let go of that hate, I started to think differently. I was like, you know what, like, I started to look at us as human beings, and like, and as a historian, having that background, just seeing how, like, because if you just study your own history or the history of oppressed peoples, you'll see that pretty much every fucking group has gotten oppressed by somebody else. If you go back to what we call the white man, right? The Western Europeans, they got their asses oppressed by the fucking Romans, right? And then the Romans, like the Greeks were the ones who were dominant before that, so you can keep going back and back and back. The Egyptians, they had slaves, like it's human nature to do something like that, when you start becoming powerful. So when I started to see it that way, I was like, the white man is not unique in that sense. Like we've done, but this is human history. It just so happens that we're living in a time where the white man is the most powerful right now, so it's easy for us to just hate them and be like, nah, they're the fucking enemy. And but when I start having these conversations with people that consider themselves Chicanos or Mexican or Latino, like, man, what the fuck? Like, are you selling out now? Like, so what are you saying? Like, you like white people now? Like, and I'm like, bro, I like people who are disrespectful, period. I mean, like, I don't care what you are no more. Like, I'm not gonna approach somebody with hate. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, but it's almost like you're expected to hate people. And if you're not, then you're not really down with the raza. You're not down with Chicanismo, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where I have an issue. So I consider myself a free thinker in that way because I've always questioned shit. I was really young. So, if I don't think it's right, I'm gonna question the shit out of it. And if that makes me have a needle, one, fuck it. You know what I mean? So that's my thoughts on that.
No, man, that's an interesting way to look at things, and I'm sure that more people, feel that same way. You know what I mean? Like, like that same way that you mentioned, like hatred to white people, man. Like, fuck, man, that's no good when you go through that, bro. Because I went through that stage, bro, and like, I
It's like,
mean, I won't lie, bro, that I still have some of that in me. Like, not that I look at white people on sight and like, fuck that dude. No, not like that though. But
yeah.
like, uh, and I tell you this because last year I snapped at this one white dude because we went camping
Okay.
like the beginning of last year before the whole COVID thing hit. We went camping and no, it was as a hit, right as a hit, as Cali was like getting some numbers up, and people were already doing the whole, what I mean, mask and all that, and and my daughter got close to this one area for this other camper on the side, you know what I mean, and the white guy came out all like, hey, get this fucking girl out of here, you know what I mean, just like that. And and then he looked at me all fucking crazy and shit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I snapped, you know what I mean?
Of
And
course.
I said some shit that you know what I mean? Like in retrospect, I'm like, fuck. Like the Chicano in me, like the fucking, like that, like the fuck that. This is the raza right here, homie. You know what I mean? That shit came out of me, and I fucking I snapped that way, and I'm like, fuck, bro. Like I need to control my shit, and but like that type of, like that in me, it's like a battle between like, you have to recognize that everyone has their fucking like struggles in life. You know what I mean? And social media is to blame for a lot of the shit
Great.
that we you know what I mean, that we how we feel. It like it makes us think that there's more out there than there actually is. You know what I mean? I'm sure it's a lot of crazy shit out there where, what I mean, either white people do things to the Latinos, or black people do things to Latinos. Right now the whole thing is what, what I mean, black people doing things to Asians. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So like, it just goes back and forth, you know what I mean? And I have to tell myself like, it ain't the white, like it's like the whole thing where it's like fuck, I'm broke because of the white man got me
Yeah.
down. You know what I mean? That type of fucking thinking, like nah. If
Oh,
I'm broke, it's because I ain't fucking working my ass. You know what I mean? I ain't out there looking for a job. That's why I'm broke. You know what I mean? That's the type of way that I've been trying to, try to come to terms with. You know what I mean?
we're gonna get
But
into
a
that.
lot of people,
Yeah.
yeah, but a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people get stuck in that mentality where, fuck, you know what I mean? I have to be on food stamps because the fucking white
White
system
man.
got me. The white system got me all
Yep.
fucked up. You know
System.
what I mean?
Yeah. I can't.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, fuck, like that's why some people can't progress in their shit. But even though I've come away from thinking that way of like, oh man, I can't get a better wage, job because it's just I'm a Chicano. They don't love us, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I moved away from that, and you know what I mean. So I've done better with that, you know what I mean. But the whole thing where if a white dude talks to me in a certain way,
It triggers you.
it triggers me. Yeah, it triggers me, and that's the thing that I still need to work on. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think in that sense, I mean, what you described to me, that was personal. I mean, that was your daughter too. I mean, so
Mm,
you know,
mm,
even if he wasn't white, whatever the hell he was, if he was Chicano, whatever, you know, he would have been like,
mm.
"Fuck, dude, like, why are you talking to my daughter
Yeah,
like that?" I mean, you know what I mean?
that's
Like,
true. That's true. That's true.
happened that he happened to be white, and you
Mm,
have your triggers, you know, like, okay, here comes another white
mm,
man, you know, fucking
mm.
up. Like for
That's
me,
true.
like what happened to me when I was like 19, when I was going to college, because where I went to school, it was a pretty good neighborhood, you know. So I mean, I was walking around in the neighborhood looking like a gangbanger, you know what I mean? Like now that I look at it, you know, like so I was walking and there was this big ass white dude like in a bike, dude. This looked like Hulk Hogan, bro. I'm not even kidding you. I'm not even that big, so I mean, you know, like I saw him in a bike just fucking taking off on the sidewalk. So I'm walking and I turn around and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move out of the way because this homie's not stopping. Like he's gonna keep going, you know. So I moved towards the grass, and then as he gets close to me, bro, he fucking socks me in my back.
Oh shit.
You see, his fool fucking, he was on a mission to fuck me up.
Oh
So he socked me on him, and I was just fucking, I was in shock because that was the first time I actually got, I felt, I mean, that shit was, to me, back then, I saw it as a hate crime. I was like, this dude fucking doesn't like me because I'm Mexican or because I'm Chicano. That was the first thought that came to my head. So I started calling him all kinds of names, as he was going in his bike, I started yelling all kinds of shit. And I was, what the fuck? Like, I'm gonna fucking get you, you fucking whatever,
Yeah.
Back to my car. And then I'm just pissed, bro. I'm not even thinking at this point. I get to him, I find him, and I'm like, what the fuck, bro? Like, what was that about? And this fool, he's picking up some shit from the floor, bro. He's got a metal bar. He fucking hits my car, dude.
Oh fuck.
So now I'm even more mad. So I go back to the hood and I get my homies like, you know what? We're gonna go find this fool. We're gonna fucking kill him. That was my mindset.
I agree.
I was right there, dude. I could have fucked my whole life up, but in that moment, and they saw it in my face. Like they didn't even question me. Okay, let's go. You know what I mean? Like they didn't even say what happened. Like, let's get in the car. I didn't find them, dude. I didn't find them. Luckily, I didn't find them. And the next day, I went with the little Louisville Slugger, the little Dodger bats. I went to school with that shit in college, bro.
Oh shit.
But there, I was at that moment when it happened to me. I was like, this is why I hate white people. Like they just. But now that I'm older, this is my thought process. Maybe he was racist. I don't know. I mean, I'll never know because I'll never talk to him. But even with that happening to me, like I'm old enough to understand that, even though that guy did that to me, like I'm not gonna approach every person that I have a negative experience with that's white as the enemy, because it could be a number of factors, dude. I mean, like you said, and that's when I began to step away and be like, you know what? Like I'm not gonna fuck with that.
Yeah.
But just to move on from that and to the next, part of Vendidos, the coconuts, bro.
The coconuts.
The coconuts.
How would you define the coconut, bro?
Brown on the outside, white on the inside. And the reason why I say that is because we went from indigenous to fully embracing, those roots, right, of being indigenous to coconut. Is basically the extreme, the opposite of that, which is anything that's Mexican or, that's I'm not part of. Like I don't want to be part of that culture. I want to fully assimilate into Anglo-Saxon, white Protestant Anglo-Saxon culture, right? You want nothing to do with the language, with the culture, right? You want to basically be accepted as white. That to me is what I consider.
Okay. Now, man, see, I have a lot of questions with that, man. And see, like, sorry to be, instead of like, bringing in, what I think about it and things like that, I have to start it with a question because, like, I don't normally have these talks. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course.
It's like I have all these questions in me. Is like that. What wouldn't push someone to become like? No one wakes up and like, oh, I'm gonna become a coconut. You know what I mean? So it's like, what becomes the fucking
process.
What's the process of one becoming that? I mean, you think it's like because so many people have been telling them, your background, your historical background is people that are just shit, and they've been believing that because the wrong people have been telling them those things, and they've been believing that, and it's just the social economic part that is just poverty associated to all that stuff. So it starts building up in their heads like, fuck, I want nothing to do with this shit. Could that be it? Or is it more of an educational way of looking at it? They found out all these things through school, and because of that, they're like, damn, my people, like, and that's considering the fact that the books in the U.S. don't talk too much good things about our people in Mexico. So that's it's a give and take. So I mean,
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think one is your background, where you're raised. I think a lot of coconuts, are probably raised in, neighborhoods that are a little bit, more, I guess, economically better than you know, they're not growing up in barrios is what I'm saying, right? So they're probably growing up with more white people. So they're when they're really young, probably they experience a lot of like, you know, racism in the sense that you know, they're not being called beaners or whatever, or maybe they are, you know what I mean? But like they don't see their culture being represented, right? Or somebody will make fun of them, you know, because of their culture. So they internalize that shit as young kids. So then when you're a kid, bro, you're easily influenced, right? Very impressionable. I mean, like anything somebody says to you, you like, I mean, this is just an example that has nothing to do with this, but right. So for the longest, I didn't eat ketchup. I just did not eat it, right? And I remember, and I was like, fuck, why don't I eat ketchup? Like, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, you know, and I remember being in kindergarten, right? I was eating ketchup, right? I was eating a chicken nugget with ketchup. And as I was eating it, I remember there was these two kids across me, right? That they started making fun of the way I was eating it. They started licking it a certain way. And I was like, and I felt really embarrassed about that. And I was like, damn, like, am I doing this the wrong way? Like, what am I doing wrong? So for my entire school life, bro, I did not put ketchup on my food because of that shit. I was in kindergarten when that happened, right? So imagine you're a kid and maybe your mom makes you frijoles, right? You take it to school, it's all white kids. They're gonna be like, what the fuck is that? Why are you eating that shit? So you're gonna go home and say, Mom, don't make me that shit again. So it starts with that. And then you talk about, you know, the history books, you see yourself depicted in a negative way, right? And then you see the news, right? You know, you see gang members, you don't want to associate with those people. All of these things are negative about your culture. You don't want anything to do with it. So you're going to try your best to be part of the dominant culture, right? So it's a defense mechanism to me. It's not so much that they want to be that. It's that they want to survive. They want to thrive. You know, they want to adapt. Now, is that the healthiest way to do it? Probably not. But I see their intentions, right? So I have a little bit of compassion for coconuts, but I think if they actually learned their history, right, and took pride in who they are, you know, as an individual, then that wouldn't happen to you, right? You know what I mean? Like for me, when I finally say, you know what, fuck this, I'm gonna eat ketchup. I mean, like this is dumb. Like, you know, like yeah, man, I think that's what it is. It takes a lot of confidence to somebody who's a coconut lacks confidence. So they try to be something.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That shit was fucking dope, man. How you broke that down, man. That's just it makes you think. It makes you think a lot about like your childhood and how you put aside all those things that other people from other cultures would tell you. Like white kids would be like, yeah, like you mentioned, like what the fuck is that? Like, why do you like eating that? What does that taste like? You know what I mean? But I had already had friends because like Mexican kids, bro, if they're gonna they're the fucking best at fucking capping on you, bro. I think because I've been capped on by blacks, I've been capped on by whites. They try to cap jokes and stuff, but Mexicans will fucking make you cry, bro. They will send you home to mommy crying, bro, because of the shit that they will tell you, man. And like I came from that. I've had homies like that as a from grade school. You know what I mean? And I was quick to respond. I was already quick with it. You know what I mean? That I was able to like if someone tried to clown on me, I was able to like send that ball back to them. You know what I mean? And that was I went through that too, where other people, other like whites or blacks or Asians will be like what is that? What are you eating? What are you listening to? Or what are you this? What are you that? What are you wearing? Why are you wearing that? Why are you wearing those type of shoes? Why you back then I had a slick back hair. Slick back hair. Yeah, so it would be like, what the fuck? Why is your hair so shiny? I'll be like, tres flores, fool. Tres flores, fool.
Right, yeah, bro. Because my hair could not stay back. I used to rock the net. I used to put spray on it. So whenever I took it off, you could see all the
I wear the net.
All the little lines of the net, bro.
The net, yeah. I wear that shit overnight. You know what I mean? Okay, with a little beanie and shit. But that's I was able to like if I was a weak dude that I wasn't able to talk, respond back to distance and things like that. Yeah, I would probably been the coconut. I've been like, fuck, I want nothing to do with this shit.
Exactly.
Fuck that. You know, like I don't like this fucking life. You know what I mean? I want to be someone else. You know what I mean? So like, I think you're onto something, bro. When you say that's why they don't want to have that characteristic in them, that history behind who they are as a person. They don't want to know, have nothing to do with that, and it has to do with being able to be to have that courage to stand up and be like, I want to know more about my people, and I want to embrace it. I wanna, you know what I mean? Everything like that. It's important. It's important to know where you come from, because I mean, you know, it's redundant to say that to know where we come from is to know where we're going. You know what I mean? But a lot of that is true though.
Yep. All right, bro. So our next topic, what do we got?
So we got Latin X. Latin X.
All right. This is probably the most controversial topic we're gonna have, and you know, we'll see how people react to this. I got my 2 cents on that. You know, I don't know if you want me to go first. You know.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
I'll take the bullet first. You know what I mean? So I know it's a brand new term, right? I know that it's a term that just gained popularity. You know, in the last, I would say probably maybe 5, 10. You know, I'm probably pushing it. I mean, I never heard it in college. You know, I mean, when I was in college, so it was probably out of college. You know, so but in academia, it's like it's popping. You know, that's what the kids are using. You know what I mean? Gen Z. You know, that's what they're using, right? So when I first saw it, I was like, "What the fuck is Latinx?" Like, you know, it's like a playing words with Malcolm X. Like, you know, that was my initial thought. And I was like, "Are we like trying to like, you know?" So then I read into it, and you know, it's supposed to be gender neutral, and in the sense that because Spanish, you know, has feminine and masculine words, right? So for example, let's say that we're hanging out, you know, you and I, it's two dudes, right? So you say hermanos, right? And then there's, let's say you bring in a female, you still say hermanos, right? So the argument is like, why do we have to say hermanos? Why can't we say hermanex, right? Or why can't we say hermana, right? Or whatever, you know, like.
Hey, let me throw one at you, bro. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
If two dudes son pendejos y entra una pendeja, son pendejex.
Sounds like a cleaner, bro. Something you used to clean.
Oh shit. Oh fuck.
That's a good one. Yeah, so that's one of the arguments, right? Which I understand. Okay, logically, okay, you know, you want to be inclusive, you know, you don't want to be, you know, okay, cool, you know, but what I've used, for example, with the term Chicano, I know that the @ sign, right, you use for like your email and shit. I've used that to represent the O and the A together, you know. So you say Chicano, right? Because I know that people will say that too. I've used that. That's something that I've kind of embraced, you know, in the last couple of years. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But in my life, I've never met a Latinx person, and what I mean by that is that there's no such thing as a Latinx person, because you're either a Latino or the Latina, right? And people can find me and say, you know what? Well, there's people who don't identify with either, you know, sex, right? Because I was also reading another article that I'm going to share with you guys, you know, like I said, that basically talks about different genders, right? According to that article, there's 64 genders, bro. 64 genders that as I was reading them, I was like, okay, there's, you know, I'm not gonna get into the names of them. You know, I mean, there's so many of them. But if people want to read the names, go for it. The article is gonna be right there. But the one that tripped me out the most was the gender fluid one, right? So what that means is that right now, if I'm talking to you, I can identify as a guy, and in 1 second, I can identify as a girl. So how are you gonna have a conversation with a person that's constantly switching genders? Because some of them they're really like, you know, they're really on about like, you know, using specific pronouns, you know, like if I identified as a woman and you call me a he, even though biologically I'm a guy, you know, like people get offended by that, right? So it's really difficult to keep up with that, because I mean, yeah, people can have transitions, you know, and for the record, I don't give a shit how you identify or what you transition to. I'm not here to say, you know, that's right or wrong. My issue with it is that, you know, people are
people are gonna, like you said earlier, people are gonna make an observation and they're gonna call you that, right? And I was talking to a homie the other day, right? And he was referring to a person who refers themselves as they, right? But the person is a male. So, but he was struggling with saying they. He kept saying he over and over. He's like, fuck. I keep saying, you know, like he, fuck, you know. And I'm like, in my head, I was like, well, I mean, you're not wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I understand they want to identify as they, but it's not wrong in my eyes, because there's a shitload of genders, bro, but there is two sexes, or really three if you want to intersex, if you want to use, you know, somebody who's born with both female and male parts, you know.
Oh yeah.
But the whole gender thing is in your head, right? So we cannot see your gender. We can only see your sex. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, the reason why I don't use that term is because, one, it's fairly new, and two, when I look at you, I'm not gonna see a Latinx person, right? If you tell me you want to be called a Latina, if you're a male, but you want to be called a she, I will call you a she. I don't care. But you're still a Latina to me. You see what I'm saying? You're not a Latinx to me. You're a Latina. Even if you're a guy, you want to be called a girl. Like, I don't. That's my point. So that term, I understand the purpose of it, to try to be inclusive, you know, and they're not just using it with Latinx. Anything that ends with an O, really, especially anything that ends with an O, they want to put the X next to it, right? And one of my homies, you know, I'm not gonna mention his name because he doesn't want to be put on blast, but he's like, hey, if you want to sound more woke, why don't you call yourselves Rasex Stand? You know? I was like, right, shit. I'm not here to be woke. That's not my purpose. I'm here to give my information and my thoughts. But, you know, I know this might get a lot of pushback from people who you know, from the new generation, you know, but that's my thoughts on that, bro. And like I said, never in my life am I going to meet a Latinx person, because a Latinx person does not exist. Well, again, you're either a female or a male, and how you identify, that's up to you, right? But I'm going to see what I see, bro. And, you know, so that's my thoughts on that, bro.
I'm surprised that academia hasn't eaten this shit up, like, you know what I mean? Because, like, just, I don't know, man, just basically thinking about it, just the basic thought of it, it's so confusing that you would have to change so many things. Like, okay, when we talk about writing it, and someone wants to put they as their what they identify with. So I was driving down Main Street, and I seen they. Well, who is it? They. One person. Well, what the fuck? What do you mean you seen they? You see what they? It's just rewriting history, like, just for something that you're believing. You can't physically see it, but you're believing. So if we go based on that, are we to say that we're able to change other things based on belief?
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
How the fuck does that's crazy. That's fucking nuts to be able to think just because you believe something may not completely be true, because, as you know, people change their fucking minds all the time. Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's like, for 1 month they can think that, oh, I like is a woman and I like men. The next month I like women. Oh no, I like a woman that feels like they're a man. So it's like all these things that, like, it's just confusing the fuck out of the youngsters, bro. Imagine how the fuck if living already as a young person is not confusing enough, bro. Come on, like, we grew up. I mean, we're male. We didn't have none of those, going through those feelings, of course, feelings of, like, maybe liking men or whatever. We didn't go through that, so, you know what I mean. We didn't have to deal with that. But just being like regular males in going through our transition as becoming an adult, and it's just that by itself was fucking, like, traumatizing with, coming from where we came from. You know what I mean? Imagine this fucking new generation, bro.
It's scary.
20 years from now, what are they gonna when they make a fucking podcast, when they make a new platform where they're talking about what they went through, the type of shit they're gonna talk about, bro. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
Like
it's crazy.
crazy.
You know what? And you know, the article that I was reading, you know, that talks about, you know, transitioning, because I mean, I know that's a big issue. I mean, it's really interesting because, like you said, you know, the whole academia thing, how it's not eating it up, and I would say that it is, because, and that's the very reason why I haven't gone back to school, because I would not be able to hang in there, bro. Like, because I'm just too outspoken with this shit.
No, I mean like eating it up, like I basically, not eating it up as a positive thing, like
Okay.
basically bashing on it.
Okay.
How
Gotcha.
because academia is basically looking at it at a critical.
Logical, yeah.
It looks like things critically, and
Yes.
to look at this in a critical sense, they would not accept this if they were really looking into it, focus in on what it stands on and what the beliefs are, and it would not stand.
Just
How
having
could
this
it?
conversation is already a bad thing in
Yeah,
their house. The fact that we
yeah,
this
yeah.
conversation is like, why are you even questioning my existence? That's what they're gonna tell you, you know? And this article that I was reading, right, that talks about transitioning, right? And again, people can do whatever the hell they want. But when you start talking about kids,
Mm,
that's a whole different story. So there's a new thing going on where parents are very woke, or whatever you want to call them, right? More accepting, more liberal.
yeah.
There's people who believe that their kids don't have a gender, right? That they'll choose
Mhm.
their gender whenever they get old enough, right? Cool. That's what you believe. Fine. When I have an issue with it, right, is when people start using puberty blockers.
Mm,
You know what that is, but essentially what happens is that if a little boy tells you, "Hey, mom, I think I'm a girl," then you can block their puberty,
mhm.
you know, and essentially what ends up happening, you know, for a lot of these kids, you know, like if you don't go through puberty, I mean, like it ends up fucking you up, bro. Like it's not normal to not go through it, you know.
Mhm.
So, and as a matter of fact, the study that I was reading, it said that kids who identify that way, you know, anywhere from 63 to 90% of kids who said, you know, they were quote unquote transgender, they ended up just saying they were gay, or they were lesbian, or it was just a phase for them. So the
Mm,
majority of kids who want to transition, you know, when they get older, they actually don't want to do it. So if you're an adult and want to do it, cool, you know. But to do it to kids, it's just another form of child abuse, bro. Like if you think
yeah, it is.
you're not letting a kid like go through puberty, like it's insane that we're even having this conversation, that we have to get to that. And some places, you know, like I know Canada's way more like on this, like they they can like charge you for, like, you know, for neglecting your child, for not letting them do that. They can take
Mm,
away your kid.
wow.
So, you know, it's really scary to, like you said, you know, like what are they going to talk about, you know, in 20 years, you know, when it comes to
Yeah.
this. But yeah, man, and also like back in the day, if you you were talking about the whole transitioning thing, right? Back in the day, before this whole thing took off, you know, it was considered, uh, you know, a mental condition to
Mm,
have that idea of like identifying with a different gender. It was called gender dysphoria. It still
mhm.
is, you know, like in psychology, it's still considered, you know, it's still considered that. But to even say that, you're already being a transphobe. But that's just, you're just using science, bro. Like I'm speaking from my scientific perspective. I'm not speaking from all, you know, like a political, like just like you said, trying to look at this critically and trying to see it from that perspective. Why can't we even talk about that? You know, and at the end of the day, people are gonna do what they're gonna do, like I said. But you know, it's really confusing, um, and like you were talking about, if people can, you know, change their gender, why can't they change their race?
Mm.
What if I start identifying as white tomorrow? Like someone gonna call me nuts? Why? It's in my head. That's how I feel. You know what I mean? Like it has no end game, you know. But like I said, bro, I mean, we're probably gonna get shit on this for this, but like, you know what? Those are my thoughts on this, and
Yeah.
you know, this is our platform, so
I mean, personally, when it comes to, I understand when someone is gay. I understand
yeah, of
that
course, that's different.
because that's a lot of the times it could be biologically.
Yes.
So that science, looking at it through the lens of science, that I understand that. But
Mhm.
when someone is, and also another thing where I don't know if you ever come across any like articles on this being like looked into by scholars where someone gets like molested or raped, they sometimes identify with
Yeah.
their own gender.
Yeah. I heard about that too. A lot of those studies, you
I
know.
want to see how common is that. If you ever come across any studies where they looked into the percentage of people that have gone through this and they have become gay because of this, uh, let's see if we can provide that as well because
Probably really hard to find that because I mean it's very controversial to even talk about that.
it is, yeah.
I mean that definitely. I mean it definitely fucks with if you're a kid. I mean it's gonna fuck with your head regardless. I mean
Yeah.
if it doesn't do that, I mean it's just gonna have all kinds of other factors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that point up. I mean, like, you know, I think because I think biologically, I think there is a lot of evidence that because back in the day, people would say that if you're gay or if you're lesbian, whatever, that's a mental illness, and I disagree with that
Mm.
because that is your orientation. That's different. That's what what you're attracted to. You can't
Mm.
control that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you like a specific type of woman, I mean, like maybe you like more type of women. I mean, you know, that's your biology. Like you either act on it or not. That's different, right? But that's not the same as well. This is how I think in my head, right? This is what I
Mm.
think I am in my head. You see what I'm saying? Like two big differences, right? So at least for me, that's how I see it. So
I
I
guess I.
understand that. I mean, when somebody
Yeah.
says, like, "Hey," it's like, okay, cool. Like,
Mm.
oh, like, do you think? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
But I mean, I guess that could have been the reason why it stemmed to how it is now, where a woman that likes a woman and but doesn't like a woman too feminine. So
Mm,
it's like, they want her a little more masculine. So it's like eventually when that kept happening somewhere down the line, they wanted to give it a name. They wanted to put a stamp on it. It's not just in my head. I want to actually call it something. What do I call that? What do I call that? I can't just say I like women, but
yeah,
what kind of women?
yeah, but
What
that's
kind of
exactly
women do I like?
you're
You
right.
know what I mean?
It's exactly what it is. Because if you start looking at the terms, it breaks it down in that way. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
somebody who likes this or and yeah, and one thing too that's not being talked about that's really controversial too, and how the whole I don't know if you heard about this recently, but they're allowing basically biological men to compete with women. It's
Yeah, sports. Yeah, I heard about that.
and it's really it's like if you think about it, it's like men historically have oppressed women. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
so now we're doing it again. You know, but in a more discreet way. Like you could just say, hey, identify as a woman, and they have to believe you. I mean, you might be
Mm-hmm.
joking about it. You might be fucking be a troll and do that shit, but to even question that, people are gonna be like, well, if that's how he feels, if that's how she feels, then you see these giant ass motherfuckers competing with like,
Yeah.
and and
Petite ass women. Yeah, I see
it's
that.
all of the women who fought to have their own sports because they weren't allowed to compete with the guys, obviously, are now having to compete with guys, and they're gonna lose on scholarships,
Mm.
lose on, opportunities. All the records that they have been set by women are gonna get fucking shattered, bro, by men who identify as women.
Mm.
I'll leave it at that with that. You know.
That makes me think a lot about the whole inclusion, how everyone wants just inclusion nowadays, and it doesn't matter how they get it as long as there's inclusion. And it's like no matter who does what, it's like let's applaud them. Oh, this
Trophy.
yeah, they've done so much. They broke out of their shell, and they're saying to the world, I'm here, that type of shit. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like that's what I took from what's her name? The Kardashians. What
Oh,
was it?
Caitlyn Jenner.
Andale, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I took from that. Come on, bro. They started putting her on fucking magazines, the most beautifulest girl and fucking woman in the world. No, mom is wait.
And there was a joke. There was a joke on that. It's somebody, I forgot who said it, but they're like, yeah, like men are so much better at doing, at being. It was obviously a joke. I forgot how it was said, but it said, men are better at women. They're even better at being women than women. That was the joke, and I was like, wow, like.
I'm like, and the thing is that people are fucking applauding that shit.
I know, dude. It's like, I mean, maybe we're the crazy ones, bro. Maybe we're not seeing shit. Maybe we're not adapting to this. Like
that's the problem, bro. That people don't speak up because, yeah.
If you question it, it's like, oh, you're a fucking transphobe, or you just hate
not only that, but at this point, we all have family members that are eating this shit up, and they're gonna start looking at you like there goes a transphobe, míralo. You know what I mean? So that's like a lot of people don't want to talk about that. And then on top of that, some people even, they have children that are going along with this movement. Yep. So how are they going to talk about something that their own children are experiencing?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of people hold back from saying what they actually believe, which I'm not just talking out of my ass. Like I actually, like I mentioned, I like talking about both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
How I mentioned where, why I believe how the whole movement to having all these different terms, 64 different terms to define within the LGBTQ community. Like, mm-hmm. I understand how that might have come along, which is from trying to identify exactly what type of female or what type of male you're into. I understand that, you know what I mean? But to try to confuse the hell out of people, there's got to be a better way than giving it all these fucking words, these it's just too many elements to add to it. Like life's already confusing, man. Like it's like let's make it a little bit simpler, you know what I mean?
And especially if it's in your head, and I mean that's how you feel. Like I said, that's fine. I mean, like I don't have an issue. I'm not gonna say how you should identify. If you want to identify as gender fluid, gender neutral, hey, cool, But when you start to try to compel speech, and we start to tell people, hey, don't misgender me, or don't, like, bro, like, come on, like, now you're making me uncomfortable, or now you're making me, feel a certain way. And they might say, well, that's how I felt for a long ass time because nobody recognizes my existence. And I'm like, okay, like, true, but like, I'm not going out of my way to tell you, hey, I'm a Chicano, you better fucking call me a Chicano, because if you don't call me a Chicano, you have a fucking problem. That's the issue. And I'm not saying everybody does that. There's people who are a little more sensitive about it and say, you know what, I get it. You don't understand. I mean, but it's people who are just like, nah, they're not having it, bro. Like there was a video I saw of this guy who walked into a GameStop or whatever, and I guess he kept saying, sir, and he's like, I'm not a sir, I'm a fucking man. It's like, okay, like, I'm gonna fuck you up if you keep calling me fucking sir, like, and I was like, damn, like, but some people are just passionate about that, and I understand, the people want to be heard, everybody wants to be seen, but to what cost? Are you gonna confuse the shit out of people, and at this point, you're not gonna have any unity. And like I said, I'm obviously, like, I'm not gonna use that term because, like I told you, I don't. There is no, to my mind, there's no Latinx person. They just don't exist. But yeah, man.
I mean, now I understand how. I mean, because at this point, the movement is like way too strong to like back out. You know what I mean? So it's like it's gonna be. I'm seeing it now as people seeing the term Chicano when that term just came out.
Yeah. Yep.
Like how you were saying that a lot of people wouldn't accept that.
Probably. Yeah.
And it's like the same thing. Like it's their movement. It's their movement. We may not fully, because we don't embrace it. That's why we don't feel the love that they feel for it. So they embrace it. So they went out their way to learn all 64 different terms to who they are. So they went out their way because they believe in it. You know what I mean? But we don't. We don't know none of that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
we're too old school, you know. So I got right. And like I said, you if you want to use it, I'm not gonna be like, nah, fuck that and stop. Because there's people who are doing that too. They're like, nah, like fuck Latinx and I don't want to use it. I'm not gonna go out of my way to also try to stop it. Like I'm just not gonna do that.
Yeah.
It's not in my interest. I don't care to use it or to try to stop using it. But I'm not going to identify with it, especially if you tell me to do it. I'm just gonna say, fuck, I'm not doing it, you know. So yeah, man. All right, bro.
Forcing someone to do stuff, that's the worst thing you can do. Like, you know, forcing some kind of for someone to change their way of speaking just because you feel offended that they say certain things. Like, nah, that's a no. Yeah.
Sure. All right, bro. So that was the last topic. Any concluding remarks before we end this? You know, first episode, it went pretty long, and hey, I'm cool with it. You know.
Yeah. It's all good.
How you want to close it out?
So basically, to the listener, to the viewer, you know, if you have, you know, any comments to you know, what did you guys like? What did you guys dislike? What would you guys like to hear more of? Something that you may have kept in you and not really talked about, some kind of issue that pertains to the Latino experience, whether in Mexico and even not even considering the fact that, you know, just because we're Mexican American, you know, let's talk about outside of Mexico, like just Latin America, you know what I mean? Latin America, and just talking about how, because really, like, you know, like my wife, she's half Puerto Rican, half Mexican, you know what I mean? So that by itself, my father-in-law, he's full Puerto Rican.
Okay.
You know, and he tells me that being here in Cali, they confuse him for being Mexican. So he's like, he kind of gets offended. He's like, but he doesn't respond in a mean way, like fuck no, I'm not Mexican. He just says, oh no, soy puertorriqueño. You know, he just, you know, corrects him. You know, so it's like, for the longest, it's kind of like the same thing as Chicano or like Mexicanos that call Asians Chinos, no matter if there's, you know, from Korea, they're from Japan, whatever, you know, they're just Chinos to Mexicans, you know what I mean, to Latinos. So it's the same thing. It's like they people around the world refer to Latinos that look like Mexican as Mexican, you know what I mean?
I agree, man. And I think that's the reason why, for me at least, you know, why I decided to go with the title Raza as our podcast, because it includes, I think, all those people that we didn't speak about today in this episode. I mean, it's just not enough time to do that. I mean, we can, you know, bring them up, obviously, you know, but we're speaking from our perspective and what we but I think Raza is inclusive, you know. It's not, you know, favoring men. It has an A at the end, you know what I mean? If you're going to go it that way, I mean, like it even includes the people who identify as Latinx. I mean, they're in there. I mean, to me, I mean, I can, somebody who considers himself Latinx, I consider them raza to me. I mean, like, so I include them too, you know. So even vendidos are raza to me. I mean, like, you know, coconuts, whatever. All of these people to me, you know, the Browns Spanish speaking community, you know, is raza to me. So that's why I got the shirt here. I don't know if you can see it.
This is dope.
Words, yeah.
And I coincide with you, bro, with the fact that they're all raza because they're all part of the Latino struggle.
Exactly.
It's all our struggle, and even as we see it as a negative thing for the coconut, it's a product of this hatred that we hold because of the, you know, this mirroring that we look at each other, that we look at ourselves because of outside sources are telling us something, and we try to put everything all the pieces together, but it's just some people are not able to fit them together. You know what I mean? So there's like they end up broken and spread away from what they, you know, from their culture. So that's a product of what the issues that happen from migrating, or just the whole transition from Mexico to the States, or the transition between where California used to be Mexico and now it's not. That the whole transition of that is what it fucked up the whole system, like within Latinos. Exactly. Now, you know, and so it's a product. So that's why I agree that, you know, they are still raza because it's a product of that of that type of environment, you know.
And that's why you got to take a stand. That's what we're doing. We're taking a stand here. To so you guys, so you people can understand. Like,
You people X.
Exactly. But yeah, man. Any shout outs to anybody you want to shout out?
Yeah, man. See, every episode I want to shout out the people that are putting out there. You know what I mean? Platicas like this, and just having those good talks because it really matters. You know. So it's like the homie Velas with Barrio Voices. Go check the homie out. Uh, the homie Chewy with Down for the Brown podcast. Go check that homie out. Um, there is American Cholo. He's doing his thing. I think his name is Gil. Go check that homie out. Uh, the homie Marco with Cardalismo clothing brand. Go check that homie's merchandise out. You know, and let's see. I mean, there's a bunch of people out there doing their thing. There's the homies at Chicano Shuffle. They've been doing their thing for quite a bit, 2, 3, 4 years, I think. Let's see. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people. You know, just basically put put on the go on the audio streaming sites and just put Chicano podcast, Latino podcasts. They're out there. Go find some good ones. You know what I mean? So this is gonna be something to, because I mean, really, what I want is for us to have these platicas, these talks, and what better than to go out there and search for something and come over here with us and listen to something and go back and forth. This good. We're not saying that we have all the answers, that we have everything and shit. Like it's just we just have a perspective that we are putting out there. My perspective as Brown, his perspective as Flo. You know what I mean? Where he came from and my perspective, so it's like, so it's, everyone has their own point of view.
For sure. I gotta give my shout outs too. One, shout out to you, man, for coming along and, and being part of this project. That I know that you have other podcasts and you have a large family, and you have a lot of time for them, so to be able to stay up on a Friday night, I know it's COVID and shit, but, you actually stayed up and, and made the time to do this. So I really appreciate doing that because, I could be talking to myself, but it ain't gonna go, anywhere, like that. So I really appreciate you doing this with me and really, embracing the idea of getting along and getting out there and just, contributing to the podcast in that way. And for all the artwork, that's all him, man. God did it himself. The music intro, the guy's talented. He's also a hip hop artist too. Check him out. Yeah, and I want to also shout out the brand Wear. This is where I got the shirt from. Cool. They're actually based out here in LA too, and all of their products are made here in the States. And to me, that's huge because that means that you're not supporting exploitation across a different nation or whatever, or cool. Kids being paid cents, like people employed here in the States, made by Chicanos, so it's good to rock. I was my wife was like, man, you're finally rocking something else other than PJs, because I saw COVID, and I was like, you know what, like it's time, if I'm gonna wear this, it's gonna be for a reason, so. But yeah, man, just shout out to all of my peeps, my loyal peeps, the ones who are gonna listen to this and really, just listen to it and actually, eat it up and consume it and digest it. And even if you don't agree with me, you're not gonna be unfriend me, because if you do, that's cool. I know where you stand this shit, but I feel like it's important to be able to do this, to have these combos and then even if you don't agree with something, man, to still be able to be friends with somebody. Yeah, man. And respect to all my relatives and all my ancestors that allow me to do this, and and for all the stuff that I've been able to read and just the opportunities that I've gotten, it's because of them. So yeah, man, that's it.
No, but likewise, bro. I appreciate that, the fact that it ain't nothing like having someone to bounce back ideas with, bro. That's like the best thing, bro. And like people like us that we're stuck in our minds all the time, and like educators, so yeah. I work with kids too, so it's like we want to make a difference. Like it's not just that we would just want to talk BS on, just because social media and you know what I mean, and all these things are booming and everyone's doing it. That's not, I mean, we actually want to change. We actually want something good to come out of this, not just views, not just likes. You know what I mean? And that's really what is pushing everything right now. Not, I mean, people may be doing it for a reason, for a good reason, but it gets lost in translation when you know what I mean, when within time and people just want that fucking the views and the likes and shit. And that's, I don't want to really focus on that, which is really tempting. You know what I mean? It's really tempting to like go out, go and start thinking like, oh, I wonder how many people liked it today.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, for subscribers. So you know what I mean? So you know what I mean? So like, and we're living in that era where everyone's just stuck on their phones and like, who liked my shit? Oh, who commented on my thing? And it's like stop thinking that way, people. You know what I mean? It's more to life than likes. It's more to life than views. It's more to life than if someone commented on your shit or not. That doesn't mean they're fucking like, it doesn't mean shit. It just means that they had the time to comment. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that they're really down homies or they're not down homies. That don't mean shit. Don't look more into it than there is. Because in the people that I talk to, I let them know, like, don't get sucked into that shit. That's why with my other podcast, the hip hop spot, I take breaks with that shit. Because it's like I get too sucked into it. I'm like, fuck no, I'm not gonna do that. You know what I mean?
Be fun. It needs to be organic. It can't be
It needs
okay.
to be, yeah.
Friday night, and I got to do it again. Now, once we get to that point, we'll stop.
Yeah,
Take
yeah.
a break. I agree with you, but yeah, man, everything you said is true. Especially the whole like thing and the whole views thing. I mean, obviously, we want the stuff to get viewed.
Yeah.
See it, but even if it does not, we're immortalizing our voices in this way. We've done it through hip hop. We've done it through other channels, but now we're doing it this way. So even if it goes on deaf ears, nobody hears this. Like it's there. And one day when we die, and somebody comes across this, they say, "Oh, look, this is what they actually thought about." Like this is what they believed in. So that to me is important. As a historian, document important things in your life. Like I'm a father now, and like it's really hard, as you probably know too. I mean, to do creative things when you have kids.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, man. But even though we don't care about listeners, we do want them to listen. So we're bro. Can you let them know our social media accounts?
Yeah. So basically on YouTube, just search us up as Raza Stan Podcast. I went on it to see if it pops up right away, and it does. Our channel's right there. Even though we just have 4 subscribers so far right now, but it does come up. That's the first thing that comes up. So what I mean, it's pretty easy to find that on YouTube. On all the audio sites, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, this will be up on all of them by tomorrow. But you know what I mean? So today, as Friday, you will be listening to, well, let's see, hopefully, hopefully I can upload it before 12 and stuff like that. So basically today, Friday, we did the first episode, and expect for it to be either for every Friday or Saturday to be uploaded on YouTube. And expect that to be for sure on Saturday up. And yeah, it's pretty much how we're gonna do it from now on. Every Fridays, we're gonna shoot it, and by either Friday night or Saturday morning, it'll be up on all sites.
Sounds good. All right. See y'all, peeps. This is Flo saying peace out. We'll see you in next week.
Yep. This is Brown checking out for today's episode titled State of Identity. We covered a lot of ground today, and next week we'll be talking about La Raza entre, is it a democratic are we democratic by default?
We'll find out.
That's the next plática for next week. Stay tuned.